Alright, Tomboy Official. I said that I wanted to talk a little bit about growing up in a religious environment. Um, for a little background, some of the people I knew were raised in families that, kept the Sabbath pretty hardcore. Not Jewish, these are Christian people that believe in keeping the Jewish Sabbath, but not exactly officially like the halakhic kind of like Jewish law, like specifically as like an Orthodox Jewish person would do it, or any Jewish person. Like it's their own kind of tradition coming from, the Ten Commandments of the fourth commandment talking about the Sabbath, depending on which Bible you have, because I think some Bibles don't have that in there anymore. Um, so, anyways, I was raised around a lot of people who, you know, I knew some gay people, but not really. Like I'm a millennial, so I'm kind of like from a phase of time where we've gone from like people not even really like using things like LGBT, and like back in the day, like when I was in like high school or whatever, people used to say things like, "Oh, that's gay," like having nothing to do with sexuality, but basically something being gay would either mean like, "Oh, it's not cool" or "it's not good." And I'm pretty sure I used that. I'm pretty sure I used to call things gay. Um, Not really thinking about what that meant or whatever. Um, Now I was really into like basketball and hip hop culture and sports. So I think that is one way that I got away with like being kind of like on this tomboy spectrum. And when I went to church, I'd always wear like church attire, like skirts and things. Probably up until college when I started wearing like business casual kind of like dress slacks, like the slacks, the button down blouses, like the Union Bay style, kind of like it kind of had more of an androgynous approach to it. Like back when like khakis and Gap were like, and like Old Navy were getting like popular. So there was a style that it wasn't all like skin tight, like sexy looking stuff. Like I could still shop in the girls section and find like, like a polo shirt, but it was like a female cut polo or like stuff like that. So it was a little more like tighter in certain areas, but I'd still be comfortable enough in it, and it was feminine enough at a church just because of the cut. But I would always bring a change of clothing right when the service was over. I'd have my backpack either in the car or I'd keep it in the bathroom, and I would change directly out of my clothes into, just something casual because I hated wearing church clothes that much. And even when I was a kid, it was more common that a lot of us would change because, you're wearing your church clothes. And I went to church all my life, like as long as I can remember. Even when I was in preschool, before preschool, I was going to different types of churches, but my family, regardless of who's what denominations, I was always raised in like church. So, in this scenario, it's like we're going to church. Um, I'm very involved at church. I'm playing the part. I'm like dressing the way people want me to dress. I'm not way out of my comfort zone, but I'm like within a limit. It was like, this is back in the day where like some of the clothes you could buy as a female were kind of not like super interesting, I guess you would say, maybe for the male gaze or whatever. Like they were just kind of like simple, like long skirts with like floral patterns that would go like closer to the ground, like near your ankles. Like I didn't have to wear long skirts, but I usually just chose to wear long skirts like that. Um, my sister was, me and my sister could kind of wear about the same size. So I remember she had a couple skirts and like polos that I could kind of borrow on occasion. If I wanted something like a little nicer, I would kind of like steal her stuff. Because she's younger than me, but she's always been like taller. And there was a certain point where like we could kind of almost wear the same clothes because I was like skinnier back then when I used to like run and stuff and like play sports all the time. And so there was some crossover when we could kind of wear the same clothes, but it would be usually me borrowing hers, or when I'd have to go to like banquets or some kind of formal event, I would always get like a formal dress. And then my sister loved it because she knew I didn't want that, and she would just take the dress like literally the next day after whatever the banquet was. Or we didn't have dances, we didn't have proms, we had like banquets. So it was like you would wear formal clothing, but they were sit down events. There was no dancing. There might be like a magician, or it might be out like on the water on some kind of little like cruise boat or like something like that. But there was no dancing, there was no drinking. It was always fully chaperoned, plenty of chaperoning. You know, even if you did bring a date, you weren't really like there to like kiss or anything. It was like always group settings. So there was no real, like, it was very like, chaperoned. So like you couldn't really go off in the hallway with like your date, and like you could ask each other out, but you couldn't really, like, there was no dancing, there was nothing really. You're just sitting at a table eating most of the time, or maybe there would be like a little walk or something, if that, but you weren't really holding hands. Like, you were so nearby other people, you got like no privacy with the person you were with, unless you drove. I don't think I knew anybody who drove, though, who had a car that drove themselves. Like, unless your parents drove you and like let you kind of have some privacy, or like there was really no way to really be alone with anybody if you go to one of those banquets. Unless you snuck off somewhere, and it's like you'd have to be quick about it if you're, oh, we both need to take a bathroom break, but then you're going to separate bathrooms. So it's like, unless there's like somewhere out of sight of everyone else and nobody's using the bathroom. And we were always in public places where there were like other people, so it's like there would be other groups of people. Like, say if it's at like a hotel lobby. We never did murder mysteries or things like that, but it's kind of like, if you feel that kind of vibe, like there's some kind of entertainment going on, but we're sitting there, and so there's not a lot of privacy. You're not really having a lot of conversations. It's kind of like, yeah, you talk to the people. Think of it like a wedding reception with no dancing. Like, it's really hard to explain, and no drinking. Like, it was basically just that, just like a meal. Usually vegan, vegetarian, usually vegetarian food. Always vegetarian food. It was never meat. They might have had meat options, but they would never have a non-vegetarian option. There would always be vegetarian. I think sometimes at some things they might have had like chicken salad or like something with meat, but it would never be pork, never shrimp, never shellfish, never any of the things that were forbidden off that list. There were other things too, but that people weren't supposed to be eating, but according to the traditions. But I think I want to talk more about like the dating world, though, not just so much the religion. Because all that stuff I can kind of throw in there. Was I raised in a cult? I don't know. I think I've analyzed using the, what's it called? There's like this method that's like this certain, like, it's an acronym where like certain letters stand for like certain things. Did they have financial control, emotional control, all these different kind of things. I feel like the denomination I grew up in had those things in some areas of the world, and I also feel like the denomination I grew up in, like, so in depending which actual church you were rating, you would probably find that some of them were cults. In LA, I don't think I knew of anything like that, but I do think some people who would either teach or preach or raise their kids kind of followed like a cult type mentality. But I don't think there was I wouldn't call it a cult because there wasn't enough pressure to, like, there was social pressure, but there was never anybody like coming and knocking on your door like, why did you miss services today, or like, maybe, they might like send you a car or call you or something, but it was very like, okay, if you want to bring your own like pork chops to like the potluck and eat them privately at your own, well, not even privately, but heat them up in the kitchen at the church and eat them at the table while everyone else is eating their delightful vegetarian approved food, I don't think somebody would kick you out for that. You know what I mean? So it's like you could break the rules. People would be like, that person eats pork chops. Or like, even if it wasn't pork chops and it was like chicken wings, you know. I remember my grandma. Oh man, I miss my grandma. But I remember my grandma, dude. She lived with us for, I don't know if it lived with. She stayed with us for like a month or two when I was younger, and we used to have these potlucks after church, and she liked going to church a lot. Very religious, spiritual woman. Um, she loved going to church, and she basically would like, I think they only had like egg salad sandwiches and stuff like that. And I remember she would bring her own bologna in her purse, and then get sandwiches at the potluck and put the meat in the, like, they were either, it was either meat that was wrapped, or maybe she just brought with her, like, remember how they used to have those like deli meat packages with a little Ziploc, Ziploc closing. I think it was something like that, like an Oscar Mayer or something. I don't remember, but she would bring like bologna or whatever, and then I remember being like, dang, like grandma, like, can I have some bologna? Like, like we'd be all like, because a lot of us ate meat, like a lot of my friends ate meat, but it was like very cultural not to eat meat. Um, there's just a lot of weird stuff going on. But basically, okay, fast forward to the dating. I don't think, like, it's kind of weird. Like, I think myself and maybe my friend group, of all the people I knew from that church, probably could have gotten away with dating way more than any of the other people that I knew, because their parents were so strict. But my parents and a lot of my friends' parents would let us take the bus. We go to Venice Beach, we go to Santa Monica, we go to the malls and stuff, and without our parents. Like, I didn't need my parents to take us places. Sometimes they drop us off or pick us up, but other times, they would just, we would, if it wasn't late or too far, usually we just take the bus. So we had a lot of privacy and like freedom. But it was kind of interesting because we didn't really use that to go and like date. We kind of hung out in like a friend group of multiple people. The school where I went to was religious, so I'm thinking we were kind of able to be more independent. Let's call it like high school. So from probably about 13, 14 years of age till, let's call it maybe 17, 18. Let's say 14 to 18. Because those are the years I was in high school. Because my school, it's a year late because I started school in the Midwest, in a certain area where you start kindergarten later than the cutoff is, like in LA. And so I graduated high school at 18, but everyone else I knew was 17, going on 18 in senior year. But I came into senior year, I had just turned 18 during the summer, and then started senior year. So I was 18 during senior year. Took my driver's test my senior year, failed the test, got my license in the mail anyways. I don't know how that happened, but happy mistake. So I only took the test once, even though they told me I failed, but they still sent me my driver's license. The DMV did, and it must have been fine because I've never had any trouble with it since. But it was like a valid official license. Um, and then so maybe she had a change of heart, or maybe she just the lady doing my test had just made a mistake or whatever. But anyways, yeah. So I got my license at 18. Um, but I already knew how to drive, but I didn't get a car until high school graduation. So that summer between, like right at graduation, I got a car, and that's the same car I kept all the way up until 2023, pretty much. Um, so basically, that car was like over 20 years old, but basically, I had that car, and so it was a brand new car then, but I was out of high school at that point. Um, and I remember sometime during high school, let's call it like maybe sophomore year, maybe junior year. I remember my dad saying, you know, if you go to school and you get good grades, like I want you to get straight A's, but it doesn't have to be straight A's. If you go to school and get good grades, you'll get money at your graduation and a car. You know, he was gonna like, you know, um, do that, and so that's where the car came from. But he basically set that up. But I kind of, you know, I did well enough in school. Like, you know, A's, B's, C's. I had to repeat Algebra 2, even though I was mostly okay with it. It's just I went on a mission trip, and most of my teachers, because I was at a public school at this time, most of my teachers at the public school had told me, okay, if I'm out 10 days, I have 10 days to make up the assignments. But the one teacher that said turn it all in before was my Algebra 2 teacher, and so my grades weren't good enough coming back. She failed me for all those assignments, or gave me late marks for all of them. I may have turned them in, but basically I had to repeat the second semester because my grades were too low, because I guess maybe I didn't read it and she said I should have turned it in and it's late. Maybe I didn't have her sign it. I don't remember what the reason was, but the mistake might have been on my end. It might have been on her end. I don't remember. But I was pretty disappointed. But then I remember being like in the class with everyone who was repeating it, and then even the teacher was like, "Why are you in this class? Like, you clearly know what you're doing." I'm like, there's a whole story behind this. But that's the only class I didn't officially pass the first time, and had to repeat the second semester during the first semester of my senior year. So I mean, I did fine the second time around. Um, my issue with math a lot of times was getting the right answer. It's not that I didn't understand the steps, it's just that my calculations were off. I made small mistakes, and then it's like if you make one mistake early on in the problem, then like if there's like 8 steps later, you know, your answer is definitely going to be wrong unless you make some other some other incorrect like error to the point where it somehow like cancels out the other error you made. But that's, I mean, if you're accidentally making mistakes, you know, like it's not very likely that you're going to have that many happy accidents that often. So yeah, I'm in high school, doing okay in high school. I don't know if I really had a lot of crushes in high school that I remember. I remember the boy crushes I had. I had crushes on boys. Not a lot of them though. There were like there was like one boy that I had a crush on, and um, that was in my junior year of high school when I was not at the religious school. I was at the religious school from 3rd grade to 10th grade, and so I don't remember having any crushes on any of the girls there. I just wasn't into them. Like, they were kind of they weren't, I don't want to say they were prudes. I didn't trust them. I didn't feel like I could be myself around them. I didn't, like, some of them were, like, nice, I guess, you know, like, I don't know. I don't really think I was, like, really into a lot of people that I knew growing up. Um, like, there were a couple guy friends I had that I kind of, like, was kind of like, yeah, I might like this guy, or like certain things about him more than all the other guys, anyways. But I didn't really fully ever want to be like dating them or anything, and then just having that involvement with church was just like, there's too many people that are just all up in your business. Now, I would have friends over like all the freaking time. I had a female friend that came over a lot, and then, but there was nothing like going on between us. It wasn't like that. But she was not straight, and I knew that since we were kids. I just don't think I knew that I was not straight. But I knew that she wasn't, and it never really bothered me, you know. Like I knew who she had a crush on. I remember I felt kind of weird about that, just because I'd never really had anybody like explicitly telling me how they felt about their crushes and things. So for me, it was kind of like, I don't know. And I was kind of raised around, I don't even know what you call it. Like, I don't know if I should say this because it might be a little sensitive of a topic. I won't, I mean, I think people knew. And I think I've mentioned this before, but somebody I knew, their father would make their boyfriends sign a contract saying that you weren't gonna pressure the daughter to have sex. And then one of my guy friends who went out with one of those daughters told everybody about that contract. And then everybody kind of found out about it. And so there was that level of strict, where people, you know, I'm trying to think, you know, I used to go to this like youth group in high school, and I'm trying to think, because all the times I'd gone to like Sabbath school classes, Bible studies, like Sabbath school classes are like Sunday school. It's like an equivalent to what people call Sunday school. There'd be like a lesson plan. You can still get like those Adventist quarterlies online and stuff. It's really not, I don't like that there's no depth to it, and I feel like that would be kind of fun to like actually write those, but I feel like I make people too religiously question too many things, and I know within that religion they don't really want people to be like questioning stuff too much like that. There's a pastor at Hollywood Adventist that kind of went very open-minded and had people studying different religions and stuff, and I think they kicked him out because they didn't want him teaching about these different types of things, and questioning. They just wanted to hear the traditional messages and stuff, which is sad. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you want to just hear what you want to hear, go to a church where they preach that. I wasn't really fully going to that church in Hollywood at the time when he was giving those specific messages. I kind of stopped, like, around the time when he started teaching them. Like, I think I went to one or two, but I can't fully remember. But I feel like it had been going on like that for a long time, of like delving into different cultural belief systems, and like, I don't know how much of the Bible they were reading, but I think he was studying different stuff of his own. And I think he was atheist. I don't know if he fully is, but I think he had a podcast about, his name's Ryan Bell from Hollywood Seventh-day Adventist Church. The California one, not the Florida one. There's one in Florida or something. That's not the same church. But he had a podcast about, I think, about him being atheist. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's still out, but yeah, this was probably within my first 3 years of grad school, so that's probably why I stopped going. Because I was in San Diego, but the grad school were while I was in San Diego. The one where I was trying to get my doctorate and that didn't work out, but I'd already been to grad school in LA before that. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think when I was younger, because high school and college kind of blur for me. I have to think, did I have a car? Because if I had a car, that means I'd graduated high school. My other friends had cars, so by the time we were done with high school, we were all like mobile, driving around LA. Some friends had jobs, some didn't, but we all had cars. We were all able to like get around. Um, and so we would have cars, we would hang out together. So we mostly got into in college. We mostly got into like sitting around in cars and talking, and having like really deep conversations. But I guess the thing I should probably explain about this religion that I liked, that I think was of great value, even though maybe there were some toxic traits and personalities and ideas, it wasn't all bad, and there definitely was a sense of community, and there were definitely like, if you can imagine, you know, my 10th grade class had like 10 people. We knew each other really, five, maybe it's 5 people. I think there were 5 of us in 10th grade, and like in ninth grade there were like 10 of us. And there are people that had gone to that school since kindergarten who knew each other and went to church together, and their parents knew each other. And my parents, when I moved and started going there when I was 5 years old, my parents got into friendships with these people, and so my parents knew my friends. My friends knew my parents. I knew my parents' friends. They would carpool us around to these different like church events and stuff. To and from school, we'd have like a carpool system going on. So there were a lot of adults in my life that I saw like almost every day, or a lot of my life, from probably almost like, I'll say from about 3rd grade till 10th grade at least, if not more. Like there were, like, I think once we left for, like, once college hit, a lot of people left for college, and in high school some of the kids left and went to like boarding academies that were like part of the religion. And so there were kids that I didn't really see as often throughout high school, and then college I saw people less. But we really got along overall, at least the friend group I was in. We could kind of talk about all kinds of stuff, but it was still kind of like, for me, it was always kind of hard to be like, can I really trust these people, because they gossip a lot about everybody else. And so I kind of was never really super open with people about things. So there were a lot of things I feel like, at least on the social level, I never really fully explored. And I remember having like a friend, my best friend was a guy, still love this guy to this day. My best friend was a guy growing up from like 2nd grade up. I wouldn't say he's not my best friend. I feel like, you know, I would say we've grown apart in a natural way, but I would still consider this person my best friend, even though I don't talk to them on the level that I used to, just because of the history that we have together. Like, I don't discount that and be like, push this person to the side. Um, I mean, it's definitely been hard for me to be trying to reconnect. I've definitely been avoiding this person, not avoiding this person. I've been avoiding maybe the types of interactions that we were used to, like these kind of like events where it's like family events, birthdays, anniversary parties and stuff, where it's like the families, the extended families, all these friendships and extended groups of people with their parents, people I grew up with that I maybe don't talk to anymore, that I don't want to catch up with, that I know are there. And I'm not saying I don't want to catch up with them because I don't like them. I'm just, it doesn't feel right. I don't want them involved in my life now, especially because I'm trying to form more authentic relationships with people. So I think I can navigate it now, but I feel like with him, there were some events that I kind of didn't attend where I got an invite and I wanted to go, but first of all, my anxiety about it was so high, and then second of all, it was just like, you know, I, I don't know, like fully, I'm not fully open with all these people because they interact with other people that I don't want to interact with, that I don't want involved in my business, and I do kind of feel like I can't fully trust people to keep their mouths shut in this community of people, but I'm not fully not a part of the community. I just don't want, I have to protect myself. So I'll put it that way. I'm as involved as I'm comfortable being, and I feel like sometimes, I have friends that I grew up with that might feel like, oh, like, why are you not talking to me, or why are you not, like, hanging out or whatever, and that's usually the reason. It's like, I want to hang out with you. I'll hang out with you or with you and other friends that I like to see, but I don't want to hang out with you and your family and your family's friends and other friends of my family that I don't talk to, like my parents' friends, and then have them all checking in with me and trying to like catch up. I feel like in this day of internet society, I have all these people on my Facebook. They're all online. We're all online together. I never fully deleted the majority of them. I think they're all still on there. And I don't really delete any of them, really. I don't think. I mean, I have deleted people, but it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I get a bit of a complex about stuff, and I have deleted people. But it was more like, I felt like, maybe I didn't want to share with them anymore. One of my friend's moms reached out to me. Oh man, it wasn't that long ago. I'll call it like 2 months ago. A friend who was a really close friend of mine, that I don't really talk to her anymore, but I've been to her house. Like, I was at her house almost every weekend at some point. Holiday parties with the family, like, always warm, welcoming, inviting us in. And is like a relative of my bestie, and she kind of asked me recently, hey, like, where are you living now? Like, where are you, And I kind of told her, and I kind of deleted the message, deleted my response, because I was kind of like, I don't really know if I really want her knowing where I'm living. And like, why is she asking me? Like, we don't talk, Like, it just felt like nosy. Like, I was just kind of like, why is she asking me where I'm living? Like, I kind of mentioned, like, I was in San Diego, I'm back over here in LA, like, and I kind of told her what I was up to, and then I realized I don't really want to tell her what I'm up to, and so I left the response there for like 2 or 3 days. I think I asked her what she was up to, and when I didn't get a response, I just kind of deleted the message, because I'm like, well, this is just the one way. You just wanted to, like, I just felt like, okay, you don't really want to catch up, or maybe she just didn't check her messages, but like, or didn't fully read it, but I was kind of like, okay, I'll engage in a conversation. I want to see how she is too. But I just kind of felt weird about it when she didn't respond. When she didn't really respond, I kind of felt a little bit like, okay, I don't want to, you know, keep talking. It just felt a little vulnerable in a not good way. Like, I was kind of like, I don't really want to, like, I don't know. I'm a little distrustful of some of these people, and I don't have full reason to be, because they've never fully done anything to me, but I just don't want to give that opportunity, if that makes sense. So it is kind of a strange place for me, kind of being back around locally around this community of people who, a lot of them know that I'm there. They know where my house is. They can see the car parked. Like I live like off of a major highway. Like if they drive past, like they're gonna see. It's not my Eclipse car, so they might not know, but they might have seen me walking outside, or seen me around town. But I don't know. I get a little. I need to feel something out like that, and I don't really know how involved in some of these relationships I want to really get. Um, I like to say hi. I like to catch up, but I like to catch up for real. I don't want to be like doing this whole like how many degrees and where'd you go to school again and like where are you working and where are you living and how much do you make, kind of like they would never ask really how much do you make, but they're often trying to size people up. And I don't really like that, especially when I don't talk to somebody. I feel like you don't need to know what degrees I have or where I went to school or where I'm living or like what I do for work. Like that's none of your business. Like if you can't just hang out and be friends and talk, and ease into that kind of stuff. To me, I don't really like people trying to like size me up. I'm not ashamed about things I've accomplished. Um, I am honestly kind of like the opposite about it. Like I don't want to come across as like prideful or anything. I'm happy with the work I've done and worked very hard for a very long time. I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I'm on the way, and so where I am for now is fine. But I feel like there are a lot of people who have a lot of different opinions of things that they want or need me to be doing, that they think they want to see me doing or want to compare me to their kids or whatever. Like I really just don't think I need that. It might be completely different. It might be completely opposite. Maybe they're really actually wanting to catch up and actually don't care about all the other stuff and genuinely care about my well-being and want to know kind of like what I'm actually up to. But I don't know. I'm kind of more reluctant to kind of let people in from that community in particular because I've kind of moved on from that. But it was good that I got separated from it and left and went to San Diego and got to figure a lot out without being so connected to this community of people. I kind of slowly eased out of LA and into San Diego and kind of like really realized a lot of things about myself, and then came back now that I'm in LA. I'm still in LA and still trying to navigate how I really want to relate to people, because initially I didn't think I'd be here so long, and I was like, well, I don't really want a community of people because I've got my community of people in San Diego, and then I'm still here, and you know friends and relationships and things in San Diego are kind of shifting a bit, and I'm developing relationships with people in LA and catching up with people in LA, and expanding my social life in LA, and I'm not trying to get established in LA, but I'm not trying to like completely cut myself off, to like you know socially kind of interacting with anyone really. Like I'm not really trying to like cut myself off from things. So I don't really know, but I'm kind of just like trying to figure out maybe like some kind of best ways to kind of work on some of that stuff. I don't see myself starting to go to church or anything. I would actually like to go to like meetup type things, like different social events where people go and just kind of hang out and like, if even if it's a Bible study, I wouldn't mind that, like a little house event, or like I just don't want to go into the church. You know, if it's an event at a church, to me that's already making me uncomfortable. But like, if they start doing like beach vespers and that kind of stuff, again, I might show up to that kind of stuff. It's kind of more like, outdoors, open-minded kind of scenarios maybe. Actually, I don't think they're gonna have beach vespers anymore because they usually stop around this time of year, like around the end of August, and I don't even know if they still do it anymore. But yeah, I really don't remember. Like, when I think about middle school, I wasn't interested in anybody. Like, I had some friends that I was like, oh, they're kind of cute, we have fun. But I had all these guy friends, and like, I wasn't really into them like that. They were friends. Some of them I thought were like attractive, or like some were cuter than others, and I kind of was a little bit like okay, like I might like the way this guy looks, or he's pretty attractive, but I was never really like into any of them enough to really like want to be with them. And same with the girls, like I was never really like into any of them. Like personality, it wasn't really the looks things, it was more like personality and just like the trust issues. Like that to me was a pretty big deal. I was like, well, I don't really trust any of these guys, and I don't really trust any of the girls, and that just made it so I just kind of wasn't really that interested. Like even though they might have been like physically attractive, I wasn't really that interested. And then when I went to high school, like my first years of high school were in the religious school. My last 2 years of high school were out of the religious school. And that was a culture shock for me because I really thought, coming from such a small school and stuff, I thought I'd just like get in with a crowd of people that I was like interested in hanging out with and stuff. But I didn't really, I don't know what it was. I didn't fully like vibe with people at that school too much. Not that they were bad. There was nothing really that was like bad about them. But I feel like, I wasn't open. I was pretty shy. I didn't really know how to meet new people. I tried a couple times to be like, hey, you mind if I sit here at lunch kind of thing? Like, I tried a couple times to like meet some people. There was someone I kind of met, and we kind of would just like have lunch outside the library and stuff, and like then I just go to the library and like study, and I joined some Christian clubs on campus. I was a part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA, and then this other Jesus something, I can't remember what it was called, but basically it was like a group. It was mostly Koreans, but it was in English. But for some reason, all the white kids went to like FCA, and all the Koreans went to this other like group. And there were two separate days of the week, so I kind of went to both Christian groups. I don't remember really talking to that many people. People would talk to me, but I was kind of like, I still had my friends from the private school and from the church, and so even if I wasn't really hanging out with people too much at the school, I still had all my other friends that I could see on the weekends, and even some days during the week after school. I might see some of them, maybe sometimes, especially Fridays. But yeah, we would like see each other and stuff, and especially a lot of my friends were like a grade lower than me, so especially once I had graduated high school and I was in college, but my schedule was a little bit more flexible. I could like go and like um pick up some of my high school friends, and we'd like mingle with their friends and go to like their houses before their parents came home and stuff. And I don't really remember being too um okay, there was one person I was interested in now that I think of it, but I'm not gonna say who it was. Um, there was one girl I was interested in, but it was a friend of one of my friends, and they didn't go to church, and they were just really nice, really cool personality. This she was bi, She lived in LA, and I think I went over to her house a couple times, but only with another friend because it was like their friend. And I think we're on the same social media. I don't think I really realized that I was kind of like into her a little bit, but she was cool. I liked her. She was really nice. We connected on like music and things, and like she came over to my place maybe once or twice. I don't know. I kind of liked being around her, but I never really was like alone with her. And that's one thing I have to say about this religion. It's the Adventist, if you don't know. But that's one thing I had to say about this religion was it was really hard to be alone with people. I mean, if you wanted to, because like I mentioned, from like maybe age like 13 to 18 or so, I was allowed to like ride the bus around town, but usually I was with my brother. We had a lot of similar friends in common, and so I wasn't really talking about a lot of really personal stuff with my brother being there. We didn't really talk about that kind of stuff. So we didn't really talk. we Yeah, I think we really didn't talk about that kind of stuff, but there were times where I would hang out with other friends. Like my brother kind of like took a backseat after a certain point with like hanging out with the same friends, and kind of like he ventured off into his own friend groups and outside of church and was like doing his own thing, and I was still hanging out a lot, mostly with the church people. And we kind of we went to yeah we went to I don't know, like there really weren't a lot of moments where we were alone. Like our age group would always kind of go off somewhere, like to a section away from our parents. Like if it was a church picnic, the teens, we would kind of like eat with everybody because they'd provide the food. Like the teens didn't like have money to go like starting their own parties and stuff, but like we kind of like go off to another side, like over a hill, like on the other side of the park. So like we couldn't really be seen. We weren't within like eye or earshot, but we were still with like a group of like 15, 20 of us, like, and so you really weren't getting a lot of privacy with people unless you'd really have to like say something to them and then go off without other people following you. You'd have to kind of like talk to them and like say something and have no one else overhear you, and then go off alone somewhere. If you were going to be like making out or anything, that was like the only way to do it. Is you can't get caught by your friends that are there. You can't get caught by any of the parents, and then you have to like secretly like sneak off. I wasn't really interested in anybody that much to try to like get anything like that going on. I don't know. I had a friend. We got pretty friendly. We'd kind of like lean on each other's shoulders during church or something, like fall asleep on each other's shoulders and things like. But I don't know. We were friends. I wasn't really into him. Of all the guys I knew at the church, I think I just liked kind of how he was. Like he was pretty cool, pretty open minded. He would flirt a little bit, but I kind of was like, I don't know if I thought he was interested or not, but I remember there was like a banquet I like invited him to or something, and then like he kind of like canceled last minute, but it worked out because my friend needed a ride, and we had like a limo seat for me and him, that I was gonna take this other guy, and then he canceled, and my friend called like an hour later needing a ride, and I was like, well, it just so happens that I've got a limo seat, and like this guy canceled on me, so come on over, And then my parents, thought that me and this guy were like going out on a date. And I think neither one of us wanted to say, like, oh, I don't have a date. And so we kind of just went together, but we weren't really. We rode together, but we weren't really going together. But we were friends. This guy and me, like, we played basketball together and stuff. But the guy I had invited, like, he wasn't from the school. He was from the church. But after that, kind of, how he kind of was like, I can't go or whatever. Because I think he called me it was like a Sunday night banquet or Saturday night banquet. And no, it must not have been Saturday because I wouldn't have been home that time of day. It must have been Sunday. And he called me saying, like, he was still working with his dad or something, and, like, you know, he'll call me back and let me know because he's not sure if he's gonna be able to go. And then he called me back and said sorry he couldn't go. He didn't really have clothes and, like, to go, and, like, all this kind. And I was just like, dude, you can just wear what you wear at church. Like, you don't have to, like, dress up formally or whatever. But, like, after that, I kind of didn't really hang out with him anymore. I was kind of like, whatever, dude. Like, because I thought we were friends, but I guess I think maybe he was maybe, like, embarrassed about the whole thing because he was thinking of, like, all the other friends that were going to be there. And I'm just like, dude, if you could have, because there's this other guy I wanted to invite. He was, like, a friend of mine that was, like, a compulsive liar. Like, I wanted to invite him, but I was like, dude, I invite him to everything. His name was Chewy. I used to invite him to everything, but he would lie about everything, and, like, he was a little obnoxious, but, like, he dressed up nice, and he usually wear his, like, ROTC uniforms to, like, formal things. And so, like, I'm like, okay, he'll put in the effort and he'll be a date, like, it wasn't like, I wasn't, like, into him, but I was kind of, like, seeing kind of where things might go. But just because he lied so much, I was like, this isn't gonna work, like. But I was kind of like, damn, I should have invited the other guy. And then there was so yeah, like, you couldn't even privately, like, ask somebody out, like, unless you called them on the phone like I did. You couldn't really, like, ask them out on, like, a date or anything. And I don't know anyone. I knew a couple friends that went on dates, but it just seemed like a mess because everybody always knew. Everybody knew who asked out who. Everybody knew who said no to who. Everybody knew, like, everything. If somebody was, like, kissing somebody, or if somebody was holding hands with somebody. And to me, that was, like, too much. I'm like, dude, I don't need all y'all, like, up in my business about stuff. And so I wasn't really, like, too interested in, being too involved with people, other than it was probably my sophomore year. That must have been my sophomore year for that banquet. And then, yeah, but usually I would go places with Chewy. Chewy was usually the guy I'd take with me. And we weren't really, like, into each other, but it was like, he was, like, acceptable. We played soccer together, like, this, it's like, can you tell? Like, most of my relationships with guys were, like, we're bros, and, like, I just happen to put on a dress on occasion, and then we'll go to this banquet thing, and then, like, we could go to the mall and watch a movie after, like, like, I wasn't, like, these guys, I don't think they were into me, but it was kind of like, we'd hang out, we'd have fun, I just kind of wanted to play sports, and, like, I tried to play the part of, like, okay, take out a date, but I wasn't really, like, into the dates. It was more like, I'd invite my homies, and I tried to invite my homies that weren't from the school, so it wasn't like, someone in the school. So that for me made things a little more comfortable, because I was always trying to bring people that weren't from my school, but they were, like, friends that weren't from my school, so it's like, and they weren't from my church. Like, I think Chewy went to the Spanish church. I'd been to his church a couple times because I met him through other soccer friends, and so, but they were Adventists too. They just went to the Spanish congregation, Spanish speaking congregation in San Pedro, and we'd hang out. So that was basically the extent of my dating when I was like 9th grade, 10th grade. Um, Junior, senior, I don't remember much about that. I remember people asking me if I was gonna go to prom. I remember that. And I was kind of like, no, like I wasn't interested. I really wasn't interested. That did not sound appealing to me whatsoever. But there were a lot of girls that were kind of like not understanding why I didn't want to go. I can't remember if I told them that I went to my friend's banquet or like what. I can't remember what I said, or I don't remember what I said. Um, but yeah, like with this church, you really couldn't um get away with doing too much. Like even when I was older and we would sit in the car and talk, because I was still living at home for a long time. And so let's say from when I was like 18 to like 21 or something, um, mm, there were like 3 years. I was at a community college, then I transferred to a university, but I was there, and I met some people in college, but mostly I would hang out with my friends, and we would kind of just like hang out in the car, talk about more like private topics. Like that was kind of more of like a time where people were more open. It was like, okay, there were maybe like 3 or 4 of us, and we could actually be like open with each other without it being like parents around or other church adults around or some chaperone or something. But the windows, would we'd park out in front of, like, usually my friend that had the car that would drive all of us would park out in front of my house, and then we'd talk. Whoever of us was in the car, we'd all talk for like hours. We'd basically stay until somebody had to go to the bathroom, then we'd go home. But it was like we'd sit in the car and I'd talk. We'd all just talk about all kinds of like personal topics and stuff. And this would happen maybe Friday nights after youth group or collegiate group. Saturday nights, I think eventually we got into doing stuff with that collegiate pastor, going over to his place and stuff. And then any other time when we would hang out, because we'd hang out, like during college, we had different schedules. So, we'd hang out more. Like, I remember we'd go to Borders and study like every night, and then we'd go to Denny's when Borders would close. Or if it was going to be a short night, we go to Borders, and then we go to Barnes and Noble, back when Barnes and Noble actually had tables where you could like sit. And then we would go to Barnes, we would hang out, we would talk, in the parking lot for a really long time, and then we go home, and then we go to school the next day. So we do a lot of parking lot, hang out in the parking lot, but it was like, um, um, in the parking lot, like outside, like talking, like in the parking lot outside. And then staff would slowly be leaving and going home, and we just stand out there and like have our conversations. Because we both had our own separate cars, so we'd usually talk till like midnight or so. And so we were out late, like almost every night of the week. Like I'd see these people, and that was like my bestie. We'd talk and stuff like every day, um, or almost every day. And then some other friends too that went to the same school. Like they didn't really study with us every day, but probably on the weekends we saw them like 2, 3 times during the weekends. And so we'd all just hang out and talk and stuff. So that's why I say, like, it wasn't all bad. Like I had like a tight knit group of friends, of a community where I still know these people, I still know their parents. I just choose to not really be too interactive because I don't know how safe it is, and I'm still slowly getting to know these people. But it's hard because like we're not like prioritizing like getting to know each other or whatever. Um it's kind of like, it is kind of like a burden lifted somewhat. Um when we can meet up. I think I'm having to meet up with them on Labor Day weekend because one of our childhood friends is coming into town. Uh, so we'll all be together then, at least for a while, over the couple weeks or so. So that's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Um, But like I just really think it's interesting. Um, just kind of how the traditions of things were set up. Like everyone kind of like looked out for other people's kids and stuff, and so whenever we were around like other people's families and stuff, if it was like a church event, you kind of just didn't really get away with a lot. Mission trips, you could kind of, or like Bible camps and stuff, there was a lot less chaperoning and a lot more kids and a lot more teenagers and like people in their 20s. There were a lot more of us and people from like other schools and other churches. So you could kind of go off there and like meet somebody, but you know, but I don't know. It was never, I don't know, man. It was stuffy. Like it was so stuffy. It was kind of hard to like, I don't know, like I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was like really hard to um I don't know. I think I'm about to say something that's not accurate, but um in my personal opinion, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that like youth and teens should go around just like having sex all the time and stuff, but I do think there's a certain amount of exploring of things, even through conversation, even if it's not physical, that you can't really do with your parents around or your parents' friends around. And I think that is one thing when it comes to that religion that I feel like people are maybe at a disadvantage socially somewhat. Because I do think, when I did start like dating people and stuff, it was like it was a pretty steep learning curve and a lot to kind of try to learn, and especially if I was dating non-Adventist people, which is kind of a thing. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. As much as I'm not like wanting to like super connect with the church, in a weird way, I actually prefer dating people who were Adventist. And that might sound super dumb, but it is like I don't know enough of them to be like trying to do that, but I it's just such a unique culture that it's hard really to really date people that have never been in a religion. I'd say that's definitely hard to date people who've never been in a religion or don't have really religious families or don't have like whole communities of people that they're connected to that are religious. Um Even if it was like any religion, like I did date someone who was um her parents were like ultra Muslim. She was raised Muslim, but she's not Muslim. And I think of all the people I dated, her and another lady from like an ultra Christian background. I think she was from like a Baptist, Southern Baptist background. But neither one of them were like involved in those religions, but they all had like family that was deeply into it still and stuff. I feel like I really connected with them probably more than most of the people I've gone out with. And I'm not saying I need someone to be like traumatized by religion, but it's like even though I don't wish that on anybody, it helps in a weird way, like with a form of understanding. Um, I do think, coming from a religious environment, it can be kind of hard to like talk about certain things. Like I think about okay, even this podcast, for example, there's certain stuff where I'm like, I definitely don't want like the church listening to this, um, or family, but other friends, maybe I don't mind. I don't think I actually mind. Um, I know some of them have. I don't know if they do anymore, but some of them have listened to it before, and it's been fine with me. I don't really mind. Um, I think it's a good way to like keep myself in check too. Like I don't ever want to be on here like revealing too much about like I don't mind telling my own stories, but I really want to take caution to not really be like telling other people's stories, you know, unless they explicitly tell me it's okay. And there have been people that, you know, they've been like totally cool with it. Um, so that's different. But even like the person I was saying, how I was saying like that the dad made the boyfriend sign those contracts and things, and then like other stuff. Like I don't want to be like outing everybody's business, even if it's not probably a big deal today. I think certain things would be embarrassing to people, and you know, I value not really doing that to people. And I've probably posted a couple episodes where I'm like, I've taken them down because I was like, I don't really, you know, I may have kept it up for like a week or something, and then thought about it more, and then been like, I don't really know if I want this to stay online. Um, and so I have taken some stuff down. Um, just because, you know, I figured, yeah, I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, if this person listens to this, and then also I don't want everybody listening to it either, because it's like, it is just one-sided, and I can have my frustrations with things, but I feel like unless somebody's really overstepping, I shouldn't need to like call them out on something. Unless somebody's like truly like being like abusive towards me or others that I love, I am not gonna be like, you know, I don't really want to be that person who's on here like, oh, like I have all these juicy things. Um, but I don't know. I do think, you know, being part of that religion has made it kind of hard to navigate different types of conversations because people aren't used to being authentic or genuine or, you know, vulnerable. Um, I kind of laugh a lot with a friend who often who's told the story once about their experiences, kind of like trying out different church groups and how they went to like a church group and the church group was kind of like, oh yeah, like we want everyone here to be themselves and like share if you've got anything like on your mind, or you know, they're always like, oh, if you have anything on your heart or whatever. And then when you start sharing, and then you kind of realize like these people don't really want to deeply talk about anything. They want you to just kind of give them like a superficial answer of like, oh, I'd really like to pray about the state of the world right now, or like I'd really like to, you know, I saw some homeless people, and you know, it broke my heart, and I really just want to send love and prayers to these random people in the community that are homeless that I see. Like, not saying that any of those things are like bad things to think about, the community, the world. That's very important stuff, but it's like if you go into those settings saying stuff like man, like my depression, you know, I changed my depression meds, and like, you know, I'm having all these side effects, and like things are going like weird, and you know, like had to take time off from work because of that, and then can't pay the bills. Like that's not, that's too personal, like for them. They can't handle those types of, you know, vulnerable kind of like explanations, you know. They don't want people to really talk about that. Like when somebody says, okay, let's open the floor for people to like talk, you know, usually with something like that, you say silent, and you don't really say, like you say, I have a silent request or a silent prayer, but you don't say the details. And so I was kind of raised in a community like that, where it's like, yeah, you keep that stuff to yourself. And if you do tell somebody, they're probably going to pray for you in a group of people and reveal all of whatever the heck it is that you asked them not to reveal. And so I've heard that, you know, I laugh at it, but like now, but like I remember being in prayer groups with people where I learned so much gossip because people were prayerfully requesting, like, oh, like, so and so had a hernia and went to the hospital, and like so and so is considering getting an abortion, and like this person's husband left, it's like I didn't know all that was going on, but they wouldn't say it like in front of the whole church, but it would be like in a smaller group. So just being socialized around that is like, dude, I don't want these guys like praying for me or like spreading anything about what I told them, and talking about whatever it is that they want to say about those kind of things. But I could tell that I was like, ooh, these are like personal things that I don't think other people wanted everybody in this group to know. Because I'm like, oh, if I'm learning this newly, I'm pretty sure that like others here newly know what's going on. I mean, I had a friend tell me about a Bible group or a men's group or something that one of his family members was a part of, and found out some of the addictions that some of the pastoral team, was talking about. And, I'm like, that kind of stuff is like, you, you know, like when you hear stuff like that and it's like your friends or other people, you're kind of like, these people can't keep their mouths shut about anything. And so just being around that kind of environment, I say it all the time. I'm like, it just wasn't healthy. And I know it does, definitely kind of like interfere with the way I communicate with people. Like, it takes me like a really long time to warm up to people. I'd say the people that I warm up to the easiest are the ones that I kind of notice they kind of have this like genuine style about them where they actually care, and they care a lot about not hurting others, and they're very sensitive to that, and kind of like don't necessarily I don't hear them saying that kind of stuff about other people, so I'm usually like, okay, well, they're not really saying that about others. um you know yeah, they're not saying that kind of stuff about other people, like any kind of like gossipy type stuff. Then I feel like they're kind of easier to trust after a while, like sooner than other people. There are other people that I just, if I can't really read them or figure out like the vibe they're going with, then sometimes I'm like, I don't really know if I really want to be too openly sharing with these people. But then also it can be group sizes, because I'm better in like smaller groups or more intimate groups of people, or like calmer calmer settings sometimes. Because sometimes I just want to tell like maybe one or two people something versus like a group of like 8 people. Because I don't like equally talk to everybody, so I don't think I want everybody there knowing the same thing about me at the same time. Like, I just, with certain people, I ease into things more than with others. But there's certain friends that it's just kind of interesting. I can just kind of talk with them about anything, and then other people, I'm like, I don't know. And then some people I go back and forth, like, do I really trust this person? Do I not? But yeah, there's a lot of, uh, yeah, there's a lot, like, as far as like the dating world. I mean, I feel like it's easier to get along with, for myself, it can be a little easier to get along with people who are like from like an ultra religious background. I wasn't from like a super ultra religious background, just a denomination that had that potential, and there was that kind of baked into the culture. Just me being in LA and around the specific people I was around, they weren't as strict, and even the ones that were super strict, they were few and far between. I did know some people who were raised like really strict, like no cooking on the Sabbath, no TV, no playing sports, none of that. Like my parents didn't raise me like that, but I was around it so much with some of my, like I mentioned, I'd hang out we'd hang out as friends often at each other's houses. And so with with some of the people I knew from hanging out in their separate houses, I knew who was vegetarian, I knew who was kind of like whose family kept the Sabbath, whose family didn't, who watched TV, who didn't watch TV, you know, who ate meat, who didn't eat meat, whose parents would let us like watch movies at their houses or play video games, whose parents weren't like into any kind of movies or didn't have a TV even. You know, I just there were some people that I was like I pretty much understood you know, how they did things. And then um I don't know. I wasn't really raised in like an environment where people always had like family devotions. I was around like a culture of it. So if I'd like hang out at my friends' houses, sometimes their families would pray together at night or like have like a Bible study and like prayer kind of and like sing a song or two. Or they do devotion in the morning. I remember like on our carpool in the morning we used to sing church songs. We didn't really listen to the radio. We would, well, some cars we would listen to the radio. Other cars we would listen. We would, um, you know, just um, we would we would sing church songs basically all the way to school in LA traffic. And then the pastor would pray when we were like parking, and then we would like get out of the car. Um, or when we'd stay at their houses, you know, we'd have a devotion in the morning, a devotion at night, like as the family, you know, and like not just the pastor. I'm talking just this is just typical Adventist family. Um, so there was kind of that like family environment, but I knew a lot of people who had abusive family members too, like more like they were super strict, like emotionally and like physically abusive kind of parents. They'd be yelling and screaming at everybody. um, they'd have tempers. I knew quite a few people whose parents had a temper, or you know, there were some people I knew who would just break into tears sometimes. Yeah, very inappropriate times. They'd be like giving like a, you know, they'd be the one in charge of like youth service, and it would be an adult, and they'd just be like crying about like who knows what. Like it was I was like some of those people definitely needed a lot of help, but also this is like at a time where people weren't like getting mental health treatment. So it's like I wonder how it would look today, because a lot of those people, not a lot of them, but I'm thinking of specific teachers, specific parents of my friends, and you know, whose parents were like abusive towards them and stuff. You know, it's not like other people didn't know. Like people knew, people in the church knew. But I guess I don't know if there was any of it that was like at that time. We're talking like early '90s, late '90s. At that time, where people would be like, "That's out of a normal range," because people would spank or hit or slap their kids back then. Like it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't abusive, but you know, if you spanked your kids, you know, people weren't really gonna like look at you funny about it, you know. Um, but I mean, I've been, you know, when you hang out at people's houses enough, you know, the parents get real comfortable with you being there, and they will start just treating their kids however they treat them, even when you're not there. And so, I definitely witnessed a lot of parents kind of losing their minds, and I was just like, holy crap, you know, like, so definitely not a lot of them, but um, four or five parents I could count off the top of my head, and maybe like two teachers. So I, you know, just being around that too, and just knowing that like those people who maybe weren't even very nice to their kids, like I didn't see that stopping, you know. I didn't see it like I didn't see any adults stepping in or like trying to like help. Um, and I think most of the adults took the approach that like they're just strict. It was considered like strict on their kids, and if they were kind of like religious people that were kind of strict on their kids, I don't think. I mean, it would have been different if it was like, I think somebody would have said something maybe if like they had an alcohol abuse problem and that was the issue that was kind of leading to that, or some kind of drug addiction that was leading them to act that way. Not that it's an excuse, but like I think they would kind of step in if it was something more like that. Um, I think it's really hard for me to say because I do think there was some abuse, but I don't think. Oh man, this is terrible to say, but I don't know. I don't think the parents who were doing it considered themselves as abusive all the time. But I do know people who lied about it. And so to me, I'm like, well, if you're lying about it, then you think you're in the wrong. And so, like, they didn't want people to know. And so I feel like when it was that kind of situation and you're like, that never happened kind of thing. And it's like, dude, I was there. It happened exactly like that. And then people try to, like, back out of it or, like, oh, like, this just a kid. Like, we don't, like, kind of like the attitude, like, oh, it's just a kid. Maybe they thought they saw something else, you know? Um, I don't know, man. We were just, it was a different time, but, um, I don't know. Like, if it was today, I'm pretty sure somebody would have, like, reported somebody. I'm pretty sure it would have happened multiple times, but because of when it was, um, I think it was just outside of the radar of anybody to really complain because it wasn't outside of that religious tradition to be strict with your kids. And, if somebody wasn't showing up with bruises or like anything like that, like nobody was really gonna. I don't think people really, unless a kid said something, nobody was really gonna do much. But it is hard being in communities of people like that when your parents are friends with other parents or teachers or pastors. Like, it's kind of like everyone's kind of together. So if there was a kid that was seen more as a bad kid, like all the adults kind of knew. Or if there was, some kind of scenario where it's like the kids witnessed something, um, people just kind of just dismissed it. Like, there was a situation going on between a female teacher and a student. I don't know how old the male student was. He might have been 18 or older because he was definitely bigger than all of us. And it was kind of interesting because he never matured. Like when you're young and you hit puberty, I think I knew him from like 5th or 6th grade through like 10th grade, and he looked like the same age the whole time. So that makes me think he was probably like in his 20s, just looked young. And he would say that, I think he said he was 16 or 17 or something, but I think he said he turned 18 while he was there, but I feel like he was pretty mature. Because a lot of us were like, between 6th grade and 10th grade, it's like there's a lot of growing and things that happen. And he had like a pretty crazy story about why he was so old in like a younger grade. Because of how he kind of got to LA in his history. And I remember once, oh man, I'm barely remembering this. When he was out of town, I guess when him and the teacher were kind of like buddy buddy. I don't know any details. I just know they would flirt during class, and we were not learning. The teacher was like in her 30s, and let's say he was like in his 20s, but we thought he was either in like 9th or 10th grade, but older than us. So he could have very well been over 18. I just don't really know. But she kind of like revealed his story. Well, he had lied to her. It was like a whole thing. He had lied to her partially about his identity, and then somebody else from the same culture kind of found out, like, hey, that's not, this guy's work. He said he had some kind of stuff that he had done, and the teacher who was like into him was like so impressed that one day when he was like out of town or out or something, he kind of revealed to her like some secret about like why um why you know he was gonna be out of town or whatever. And I guess she went in at chapel, which is the whole school. During chapel, this teacher gets on the mic and like reveals that the um the 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 student that he was doing all this kind of work, and he's going to show us once he gets back from his trip, and he had been lying about all that, and like she kind of like exposed his story, even though I don't know I'm pretty sure a lot of it was fake, but some of it was probably true, about like the immigration related stuff. And she just like put him on blast to the whole school, like, not to be mean, like she was like proud of him. And then he comes back into town, and he's like, why did she tell like the whole school, like, and that's what I mean, that's how these people were. It was like there is no safe secret, like even someone who's supposedly like in some kind of not so okay, maybe it was okay, but still the power dynamic. I'm gonna assume he was over 18, in all honesty, just because he never matured. Like, he never physically got bigger or stronger or was growing more like body hair or anything. Like, there was nothing about, unless he fully finished puberty like by 17 or however old he was supposed to be, and just was fully done with puberty. Because I knew him even after, like, I knew him probably into like probably once I graduated high school, and he still kind of looked the same age. Like, he never really aged. And I think knowing someone since I was in 6th grade, if they were in my class, all of us had aged. I mean, so I really think he was older. Um, but just she was still the teacher and he was still the student. I think they were lying about his age, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just telling myself that. I don't really know that for sure. But there was some lying going on anyways about how he got there and what he was doing and all these other things that she felt the need to kind of reveal to like the whole school during a chapel. Um, it's just crazy stuff. But yeah, I don't really know if fully a lot of these adults were the best at protecting children all the time. If you compare it to today, I think people today are a little more savvy. Um, but I do think what was different was like parents, like looking out for other people's kids. Because I didn't even see that once my sister's generation was growing up too much. Like, her generation was maybe the last generation I saw that with, but we were just very socially connected and still kind of are. But, I try to make healthy social decisions, and I'm not sure yet how healthy of a decision it would be to kind of get involved with some of these people. It might be fine. I'm not sure. I don't know how much I want to risk it. I want to be comfortable while I'm living here, especially because I don't know how long I'll be living out in LA. It might not be a quick process, and I don't want to feel discomfort to a point where I want to like leave or move. I want to still stay here comfortably and just chill and like do my own thing. Um, so I don't really know, but I don't know, guys. Like, it's just an interesting thing. Um, like, I don't really know that many people that are like from that world that are also LGBT. Like, actually, I know quite a few, but there's not a lot. Um, there's not a lot that I know that I would like. Like, there's not a lot. There's some people that I've kind of tried to feel out a little bit, but I don't really get the interested vibe from them. Um, and then there's a couple people that are maybe not from that religion. Um, that I'm trying to get to know, but I don't know to what extent. Just kind of because I'm like, it doesn't hurt to try to get to know people better than I already know. Because people grow on me. Like, just because I'm not interested doesn't mean that I'm not going to be interested later. Or that I'll never take any kind of interest. And I'm not really trying to force anything and like, oh, I need to be like having a crush on somebody. But yeah. Um Growing up in that church was really crazy. Um okay. I don't know how much more I really have to say about that. That's it for now.